Hey everyone, welcome back to Real Talk. I'm your host Josh, and today we're heading to the middle of nowhere, where the sun is blazing, the ground is rumbling, and survival is all about staying off the dirt. That's right, we're talking about 1990s Tremors, the cult classic that made us all just a little more paranoid about what might be lurking beneath our feet. Now, Tremors is one of those films that sneaks up on you. It didn't make a huge splash in theaters when it was released, but once it hit home video, it became an instant favorite. And honestly, how could it not? It's got everything: action, suspense, humor, and a fantastic cast led by none other than Kevin Bacon, who, by the way, initially thought starring in a monster movie about underground worms might be career suicide. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. But beyond the cult following and the fun factor, Tremors does something a lot of creature features fail at. It makes you care. The characters in this film aren't just monster bait. They feel like real people. You actually want them to survive. And the monsters? Well, they aren't just mindless beasts. They're smart, they're unpredictable, and they make for one hell of a threat. So, in today's episode, we're going to dig deep into what makes Tremors so endlessly rewatchable. I'll share some fun behind-the-scenes stories, talk about why the film has stood the test of time, and of course, break down some of the most memorable moments. And as always, I'll be giving my real talk rating at the end. So grab your survival gear, stay off the ground, and let's get into Tremors. Now, some movies hit theaters with a bang, massive opening weekends, critical acclaim, all the buzz. Well, others, they sneak up on you, lying in wait, ready to grab hold of audiences years later when they finally get the appreciation they deserve. Tremors is one of those movies. When it debuted in 1990, it barely made a splash. But thanks to word of mouth and the magic of home video, it slowly but surely slithered its way into cult status. Today, Tremors is regarded as one of the best creature features ever made. It's a perfect blend of horror, comedy, and adventure, packed with practical effects that still hold up all these years later. But how did a low-budget film about giant underground monsters go from box office disappointment to beloved classic? Well, let's dig in. In 1990, Hollywood is shifting, the late 80s slasher boom is winding down, and audiences are looking for something fresh. Enter Tremors, a film that feels like a throwback to the monster movies of the 50s. Think Them with the giant ants or The Thing from Another World, but with a modern twist. Directed by Ron Underwood, who would later direct the hilarious City Slickers, Tremors takes us to the fictional town of Perfection, Nevada, a dusty, isolated community with a population small enough to fit into a single diner. Our main guys, Valentine or Val McKee, played by Kevin Bacon, and Earl Bassett by the always amazing Fred Ward, two handymen tired of their dead-end jobs and desperate to escape to something better. But, of course, fate and a few giant man-eating worms have other plans for them. Alongside them, we have Finn Carter as Rhonda Lebeck, a seismologist who first notices something strange happening under the ground, and Michael Gross and Reba McEntire as Bert and Heather Gummer, the ultimate survivalist couple with an arsenal of weapons that would make anyone on Doomsday Preppers jealous. Despite its fun concept and great cast, Tremors struggled at the box office, bringing in only about $16 million, which was barely above its $11 million budget. But that's where things start to get interesting. This film absolutely thrived in the home video market. It was one of those VHS tapes that just kept circulating, rented, rewatched, passed around, and before long, Tremors had cemented itself as a must-see for monster movie fans. The success of the original led to an entire Tremors franchise, including 6 direct-to-video sequels, a short-lived TV series, and even a recently scrapped reboot that was supposed to star Kevin Bacon returning as Val. Unfortunately, that one never panned out, but the original film remains the absolute crown jewel of this entire series. But why am I covering Tremors today? Simple. It's an absolute blast that I try to watch at least once a year. Some movies are good. Some are so bad they're good. And then there are movies like Tremors. Films that know exactly what they are and execute that vision perfectly. It walks the line between horror and comedy in a way that few films manage to pull off. There are moments of real tension, but the characters are so likable and the tone is so fun that it never becomes too dark or serious. Another reason the film still holds up, well, it's the practical effects. The Graboids, the underground creatures terrorizing perfection, they're brought to life with a mix of animatronics, miniatures, and just old school movie magic. And the result is monsters that feel real. There's something that's visceral about the way they move and how they react to sound, how they burst out of the ground unexpectedly. Even in an age now where CGI dominates, Tremors proves that practical effects still have their place. And finally, at the heart of it all, it's the characters that make this movie great. Val and Earl's buddy comedy dynamic gives the film its charm. Bert and Heather Gummer steal every scene they're in. Even the side characters like Walter, the store owner, or Melvin, the annoying teenager, they all add layers to the small town setting. Unlike so many horror movies where characters are just fodder for the monster, Tremors makes you care about these people, which makes the action all the more engaging. So whether you're a longtime fan or you've never seen it before, Tremors is one of those movies that I think deserves a spot on your watch list. And if you've somehow gone this long without watching it, well, consider this your sign to fix that. Now that we've got some background, let's dig into the film itself. Without getting swallowed whole, of course. Okay, let's dig into the heart of Tremors, the story itself. Now, this isn't just some run-of-the-mill monster flick where things go bump in the night and people scream until they're picked off one by one. No, Tremors takes that classic creature feature formula and injects it with humor, action, and characters who feel like real people. Folks that you'd want to grab a beer with before running for your life. The film really wastes no time pulling us into the dusty, dead-end world of Perfection, Nevada, and makes us care about the handful of quirky residents. And just when you're settling into the easygoing, small-town rhythm, bam, the ground starts to move, all hell breaks loose. So let's take a closer look at the ride Tremors takes us on, from its quiet beginnings to its heart-pounding finale. So meet Val McKee and Earl Bassett, two handymen who have just about had enough of their dead-end existence in Perfection. The town is as small as its name is ironic, a dried-up desert outpost with exactly 14 residents, a single road, and not much else. Val and Earl spend their days fixing fences, emptying septic tanks, and dreaming of something, anything better. One morning, though, they finally decide to pack up. They're leaving for good. No more odd jobs, no more dead-end town. They're ready for a fresh start. But fate has other plans. Just as they hit the road, they come across some strange and unsettling sights. A series of bizarre deaths, a mutilated flock of sheep, and a man found high up in a power line tower, dead of dehydration, as if he was trying to escape something below. And that's when things start to get weird. Their truck suddenly gets stuck on something, but not something they can see. It's like the earth itself is grabbing at their tires and refusing to let them go. Then, without any warning, an enormous snake-like tentacle erupts from the ground, writhes and snaps at them, and in a panic they barely escape. Whatever the thing is, it's hunting them. They rush back to town, but before they can even wrap their heads around what's happening, the attacks begin to escalate. People are being pulled underground by creatures they can't see, and it quickly becomes clear. These monsters, later dubbed Graboids, aren't just mindless beasts, they're cunning. They can hear every step, every movement, and they're adapting to their prey. What follows is a desperate fight for survival. The residents of perfection must work together, using whatever scraps of knowledge and resources they have to outwit the Graboids before they're all swallowed up. And trust me, watching them figure out creative ways to fight back is half the fun. Now, the beauty of Tremors is that it's packed with moments that perfectly balance tension, action, and comedy, and here are 3 of my favorites. First up is that very first Graboid attack. This is the moment when Tremors stops hinting at the threat and fully lets it loose. Val and Earl are trying to warn the town when they stumble upon a road crew doing construction. One of the workers, not taking them seriously, casually sticks a jackhammer into the ground. Big mistake. The jackhammer suddenly jams and starts moving by itself, dragged along the ground as if something enormous is yanking it from below. Before anyone can react, the poor guy holding it is yanked underground, screaming as dirt and rock explode around him. The crew run in all directions, and Val and Earl are gone in their truck, only to realize that whatever's beneath them is chasing them, moving through the earth like a shark cutting through water. The film's mix of horror and humor is on full display here as Val and Earl try to outrun something they can't see. And just when they think they're safe, the truck suddenly stops, it's caught on something. Val slams on the gas, the engine roars, and finally, with a crunch, they break free. And when they check behind them, once they get back into town, they see that worm-like tentacle attached to their truck, and they realize that it's not just a tentacle, it's part of something much bigger. And then at Bert and Heather's basement shootout. And if you've seen Tremors, you know this scene. Bert and Heather Gummers, the town's resident survivalists, have spent years and years stockpiling weapons, prepping for doomsday scenarios. Turns out today is the day their paranoia pays off. A Graboid smashes through their basement wall, and at first it looks like they're doomed. But then, Bert and Heather exchange a look. No words, just understanding, and they let loose their hellfire. The couple unloads round after round into the monster, grabbing every weapon within reach. The creature roars in agony, but it just keeps coming. So Bert goes for the grand finale, a massive elephant gun. 1 shot, 2 shots, 3 shots. The Graboid collapses, a lifeless pile of guts and tentacles. It's that perfect mix of absurdity and over-the-top badassery, and it's just one of those reasons that Bert became a fan favorite character that went on to lead most of the sequels. And then third, that final standoff on the rock. Now, I won't spoil exactly what happens, but the climax of the film is just this wonderful use of tension and problem solving. The survivors are stranded on a rock, completely surrounded by the remaining Graboids. They're out of ammo, they're out of supplies, and the monsters know they're up there. This isn't just a brute force battle, it's a game of wits. Throughout the movie, we've seen these creatures evolve, learning from their mistakes. But now it's up to Val and the gang to prove that they can be just as resourceful. And what follows is an edge-of-your-seat kind of sequence that delivers just the right amount of suspense, strategy, and one final triumphant moment that will have you cheering at the screen. There's a reason Tremors has endured for over 3 decades. Because it's not just about sandworms eating people. It's about people figuring out how to survive in the face of the seemingly impossible. It's funny, suspenseful, and filled with characters you actually care about, which is something a lot of modern creature features seem to forget. So whether this is your first or your 50th time watching the movie, Tremors delivers the same thrilling, ridiculously fun experience every time. And honestly, that is pretty rare. Now for the real talk and what I think of this film. You know, some movies just have that magic to them. You throw them on, no matter the mood, and suddenly you're grinning like an idiot, totally caught up in the ride. Tremors is that kind of film. It's the perfect mix of action, humor, and horror, never taking itself too seriously, but never so ridiculous that it loses its tension. It sits right in that sweet spot where you're interested in the characters, having fun with the creature mayhem, and maybe, just maybe, imagining what you'd do if you were trapped in a dusty desert town with giant underground monsters hunting you down. So let's talk about why, for me, Tremors works so damn well, why it's aged like fine whiskey, and why I think it deserves a spot in your watch list all these years later. Starting with entertainment value. There's a reason Tremors has built such a loyal fan base over the years. Some movies are good because they tell an important story. Some movies are good because they push the boundaries of filmmaking. And then there are movies that are just fun. And that's Tremors. It's the perfect example of a film that understands its audience. It knows exactly what it is, and it leans into that fully. You want tense horror moments? Check. You want fast-paced, edge-of-your-seat action? Got it. You want comedy that actually lands? Oh yeah, plenty of that too. And then rewatchability. This movie doesn't get old. There are films that I love that I'll only revisit every few years or rarely at all. But Tremors, you could put this on at any time with any group of people, and it just works. Whether it's your first or 50th time, it's just as entertaining. And talk about the creatures. The Graboids are an amazing example of practical effects, done the right way. They're gross, they're weird, they feel real. There's just something so much more unsettling about seeing an actual physical creature thrashing around than watching a weightless CGI monster. It's that old school Jaws effect where half the horror is not seeing the monster, just knowing it's there, lurking under the surface. And when the full Graboid is revealed, it's just so cool. The design is unique, it making them one of the more memorable movie monsters. And let's be real, none of this would matter though if the characters weren't fun to be around. That's what makes the film really shine. Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward have amazing chemistry as Val and Earl. You completely buy those two guys that have been working together for years, bickering like brothers, but always having each other's backs. And the whole town of perfection feels lived in. Everyone has a distinct personality, from Michael Gross as survivalist Burt Gummer to the quirky general store owner Victor Wong as Walter Chang. These people are real, and that makes the chaos they go through more engaging. And then the storytelling. The thing about Tremors is it doesn't need some complicated plot. That's the good thing about this film. It's a reminder that simple stories, when done well, can be some of the best. The setup is straightforward. Small town, isolated. Something's picking the people off. It's the classic monster movie formula. But what makes it work is how it unfolds. The pacing is near perfect. Each new discovery adds another layer of excitement without ever bogging things down. First, weird stuff starts happening. Dead bodies, odd tremors, Something is just off. Then we get the horrifying reveal of what's actually hunting them. And finally, the town bands together for survival with increasingly desperate and creative attempts to outsmart the creatures. It's structured like a classic adventure film, moving from one fun, intense set piece to the next. And the script knows when to slow down and let us enjoy the characters. There are great little moments of humor and camaraderie sprinkled all throughout, and it makes you care about all of these people. And that's why so many creature features get wrong. They focus too much on the monster and not enough on the people running from it. Tremors finds that balance. It gives us an awesome, terrifying creature, but never loses sight of the fact that characters are what make us invested. Alright, so let's talk scores. If I'm rating Tremors purely for what it sets out to do, be an insanely fun, monster-packed thrill ride, it's a 10 out of 10. Seriously, for sheer entertainment value, it doesn't get much better than this. If I'm looking at it through a broader lens, comparing it, say, to deeper, more complex films, well, it's still a solid 7 out of 10. The story isn't groundbreaking, and it doesn't really need to be. It is told exceptionally well, with great pacing, great performances, and practical effects that hold up. At the end of the day, Tremors is the perfect popcorn movie. It's got the heart of an old school adventure film, the suspense of a horror movie, the humor of a buddy comedy, and it's all wrapped up in this tight 96-minute package. So if you've never seen it before, do yourself a favor. Grab some snacks, turn off the lights, and get ready for a hell of a fun ride. This movie, it's just gonna put a smile on your face. Alright folks, that brings us to the end of another episode of Real Talk. Now if you've had as much fun as I did talking about Tremors, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this episode with a fellow movie lover. Seriously, spread the word. The more people we get talking about these films, the better. And hey, I want to hear from you. Have you seen Tremors? Do you remember the first time you watched it? Were you a kid peeking through your fingers every time a Graboid lunged out of the dirt? Or maybe you caught it later in life and finally understood why so many people have a soft spot for this bizarre little monster movie. Whatever the case, let's talk about it. Hit me up. I'm on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at RealTalk. Or if you're old school, send me an email, therealrealtalk@gmail.com. I'm always up for a good movie discussion. Now, next week, oh man, next week, we're shifting gears big time. Imagine taking an old school kung fu movie, completely redubbing it with absurd, ridiculous dialogue, adding in some totally unnecessary CGI, and topping it off with a main character whose mouth doesn't quite sync up with what he's saying. Well, that's Kung Pao, Enter the Fist. And it is one of the most bizarre, downright weird comedies ever made. It's a movie that kinda has to be seen to be believed, and trust me, you won't want to miss this episode. So remember, if you're ever in a tiny desert town and the ground starts rumbling under your feet, maybe don't stick around to see what happens next. Just go. Trust me on this one. But until next time, keep watching, keep loving, and keep those reels rolling. We'll talk to you soon.
Underneath the sun, green, 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 talking reels and all their schemes, dusty scenes and dreams unfold, stories told in shadows born. and whispers tight. Dim the streets